Story 1. I'm from Connecticut, a place known for its serene beauty and quiet neighborhoods. Despite the tranquility of my surroundings, I found myself entangled in a long-distance relationship with a girl from Georgia. The distance between us only fueled my desire to see her, so I often embarked on road trips to visit her in the South. There was a certain allure to these journeys, a sense of freedom that enveloped me as I traversed the highways of the United States alone. To save money during these trips, I resorted to sleeping in my car. Some may find it uncomfortable, but to me it felt like a form of adventure. I saw it as a chance to truly immerse myself in nature, albeit within the confines of a metal tent. With the seat reclined, the key in the ignition as a safety precaution, and the windows slightly cracked for fresh air, I would doze off, oblivious to the potential dangers that lurked in the darkness. Perhaps, in hindsight, I should have taken more precautions. On one particular journey, I was headed southward, a 2-day drive that usually led me to a rest stop along the Virginia-North Carolina border. It was my preferred spot, for these rest stops tended to be quieter than bustling truck stops. On this occasion, fatigue weighed heavily upon me, and I opted to settle for the first rest stop I encountered rather than seeking out a familiar love station. As I pulled into the vacant parking lot, I noticed only a handful of cars scattered beneath the dim glow of the amber street lamps. It seemed that a few other weary travelers had the same idea as me. Choosing solitude, I parked my car away from the others, seeking refuge beneath the sheltering shadow of a tree, far from the prying eyes of the street lamps. It was my feeble attempt to preserve a modicum of privacy. Following my routine, I locked the doors, cracked the window for ventilation, kept the key within reach, reclined the seat, and surrendered myself to sleep. Throughout my previous car camping nights, I had never encountered any disturbances. Hence, I had no inkling of the terror that awaited me that fateful night. A sudden sharp tap jolted me awake, and at first I dismissed it as a mere figment of my dream. Confusion clouded my senses as I opened my eyes, my reclined position obscuring my view. Then I heard it again, a tap, like a minuscule object colliding with a hard surface. The irregular rhythm of the sound puzzled me. Was it rain? Droplets found their way onto my windshield. I was parked beneath a tree, after all. Perhaps a small creature, like a squirrel or a bird, had inadvertently dropped something onto my car. But what if it wasn't an animal? A horrifying thought wormed its way into my mind. An intruder might be lurking outside, purposefully tapping on my car. My heart raced, and a surge of adrenaline coursed through my veins. What did this person want? Were the doors securely locked? Yes, they were. The keys rested in the ignition, ready to facilitate a swift escape. Yet I lay there motionless, feigning sleep, pretending not to have heard a thing. I hoped against hope that the trespasser would leave me be. Ignorance, I convinced myself, was preferable to confronting whatever nightmare awaited me outside. Still, the tapping persisted, incessant and unrelenting. I couldn't remain passive any longer. I had to take action. I couldn't allow fear to paralyze me within the confines of my car. I had to confront the source of the noise. My heart thudded in my chest, its thunderous beats reverberating in my head. Every fiber of my being screamed with trepidation as I steeled myself for the inevitable. The decision was made. I would raise my head and face the unknown. It was a moment of sheer terror, as if the entire weight of the world rested upon my trembling shoulders. With painstaking slowness, I lifted my head, straining to see through the darkness that enveloped the windshield. The faint glow of the street lamps cast eerie shadows, illuminating the figure that lay before me. My breath caught in my throat, and a chill ran down my spine as I beheld the sight that would forever haunt my nightmares. There, pressed against the glass, was a face, an ethereal visage that sent shivers coursing through my veins. It was the face of a woman, her features frozen in an unnatural grin. Her eyes, rolled back and devoid of life, stared unblinkingly into my soul. Her nose pressed uncomfortably against the glass, and her lips, stretched wide in a grotesque mockery of a smile, revealed decaying, rotting teeth. Her sickly pale skin contrasted sharply with her unkempt, matted black hair that cascaded around her in disarray. I was petrified, held captive by a bone-chilling fear that gripped me tightly. How long had I sat there, paralyzed with terror? I couldn't say. Time seemed to stand still as my mind raced, desperately seeking a way out of this macabre encounter. In that moment, reason and logic failed me, leaving behind only a primal instinct to survive. Summoning every ounce of courage I possessed, I lunged for the ignition. My hand trembled as it found its mark, and with bated breath, I turned the key. The engine roared to life, its familiar rumble providing a fleeting moment of solace in this nightmarish scenario. Without a second thought, I shifted into reverse and slammed my foot on the accelerator, praying that my sudden movement would catch the intruder off guard. As I peeled out of the parking lot, panic consumed me. In my haste, I flicked the windshield wipers in a futile attempt to dislodge the woman from her haunting perch. The realization dawned upon me. Was I about to embark on a desperate escape with a deranged individual clinging to the hood of my car? The mere thought sent a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins, further heightening my panic. But fate had mercy on me that night. As I sped away, leaving the rest stop behind, I heard an unearthly shriek pierce the air. It echoed with the desperation of a wounded animal, chilling me to the core. Glancing into the rearview mirror, my heart lurched as I caught a glimpse of the woman. She was on all fours, chasing after me with an unholy determination. Her hair swirled wildly around her twisted form, casting an otherworldly silhouette against the moonlit backdrop. I dared not look back again, focusing instead on the road ahead. With each passing mile, my heart gradually eased its frenzied pace, but the trauma of that encounter would forever be etched into my memory. It wasn't until the first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and pink that I allowed myself to breathe a sigh of relief. In the safety of the daylight, I finally brought my car to a halt, my trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. The realization of what had transpired sank in, leaving me with a profound sense of gratitude for my escape. From that day forward, I vowed to be more cautious, to never take my safety for granted during my solitary travels across the vast expanse of the United States. And so, I continued my journey. But the events of that harrowing night stayed with me, casting a shadow over my future road trips. The once exhilarating solitude I found in traveling alone now carried a subtle undercurrent of unease. I couldn't shake the image of that haunting face pressed against my windshield, the vacant eyes and grotesque smile etched into my mind like a permanent scar. Who was she? What drove her to such deranged behavior? These questions gnawed at my thoughts, urging me to delve deeper into the mysterious encounter that had unfolded in that desolate rest stop. Determined to find answers, I embarked on a quest for understanding. My research led me down a twisted path, uncovering tales of restless spirits, vengeful ghosts, and the dark secrets that hide in the forgotten corners of the world. Legends whispered of restless souls haunting the highways, their tragic stories forever intertwined with the asphalt ribbons that stretched across the nation. One tale, in particular, caught my attention, a legend of a lost soul wandering the highways of the South, forever seeking redemption for a life cut tragically short. Could it be that the face I encountered was that of the restless spirit? Was she trapped between realms, her tormented presence manifesting in the dead of night? Driven by a mix of fascination and trepidation, I embarked on a pilgrimage to the rest stop where the encounter took place. The air was thick with anticipation as I retraced my steps, hoping to find some semblance of closure amidst the ghostly echoes of the past. As I approached the rest stop, a wave of apprehension washed over me. The once familiar surroundings now seemed imbued with an eerie aura, as if the very fabric of the place had been tainted by the supernatural. With cautious steps, I explored the area, my senses attuned to any sign of the paranormal. In the midst of my investigation, I stumbled upon an old newspaper article that sent a chill down my spine. It detailed a tragic accident that occurred years ago near the rest stop, claiming the life of a young woman. Her name was Emily, a vibrant soul full of dreams and aspirations, cut short in the prime of her life. According to the article, Emily had been driving alone on a stormy night when her car veered off the road, crashing into a tree not far from the rest stop. Her life ended abruptly, her spirit forever tethered to the place where her mortal journey had ceased. It was said that those who encountered her restless apparition were met with a malevolent grin, a twisted reflection of the joy she had once radiated. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a mix of sorrow and compassion welled up within me. Emily's spirit, trapped in an eternal loop of torment and longing, sought solace and release. It became clear that my encounter with her was not a random act but a desperate plea for understanding, a plea I could not ignore. With newfound purpose, I embarked on a mission to lay Emily's troubled spirit to rest. Guided by mediums, spiritualists, and my own intuition, I delved deeper into the realm of the supernatural, seeking the means to help her find peace. Together, we conducted seances, performed cleansing rituals, and offered prayers in an attempt to bridge the divide between the living and the dead. Weeks turned into months as we persisted in our efforts, determined to grant Emily the salvation she so desperately craved. And then, one fateful night, during a solemn ceremony beneath the moonlit sky, a sense of serenity descended upon us, as if a gust of wind carried away the remnants of sorrow. Emily's spirit appeared before us, her once tormented expression now serene and tranquil. In that transcendent moment, Emily communicated with us, her ethereal voice filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. She revealed the depths of her anguish, recounting the events leading up to her tragic demise. She had been driving home to her family, her heart filled with excitement and anticipation. The rain had poured relentlessly, obscuring her vision, until a sudden gust of wind caused her car to skid off the slick road, hurtling toward the tree that would seal her fate. In the moments before impact, Emily's last thoughts were of her loved ones, the dreams she would never fulfill, and the unfairness of her untimely end. As her spirit lingered in the realm of the living, she yearned for closure, for the chance to bid her family a final goodbye and find peace in the afterlife. Touched by her heartbreaking tale, we resolved to fulfill her last wishes. With Emily's guidance, we reached out to her family, sharing the message of love and forgiveness that she had imparted. The reunion, though bittersweet, offered solace and a sense of closure to both Emily and her grieving loved ones. But our journey didn't end there. Emily's story awakened a newfound awareness within me, a realization that countless lost souls roamed the highways, trapped in their own personal purgatories. Determined to bring about change, I devoted myself to aiding these restless spirits, seeking to guide them towards redemption and liberation. In the years that followed, I traversed the country, delving into haunted tales and forgotten tragedies. Armed with empathy, understanding, and a growing arsenal of spiritual tools, I became a beacon of hope for those lost souls yearning for release. Together with a group of like-minded individuals, we formed an organization dedicated to assisting tormented spirits, offering them a chance at peace and resolution. Our efforts were met with both skepticism and reverence, as we worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between the realms of the living and the dead. We conducted investigations, performed cleansings, and provided solace to the grieving families left behind. Each encounter with a restless spirit brought its own challenges and revelations, deepening our understanding of the supernatural and reinforcing our commitment to this extraordinary calling. Through our endeavors, we discovered that the restless spirits were not merely specters to be feared, but lost souls seeking redemption and closure. Our work became a testament to the power of compassion, healing, and the interconnectedness of life and death. We brought comfort to the grieving, unearthed forgotten truths, and helped these wayward souls find their way back to the light. As the years passed, the road trips that once filled me with trepidation transformed into journeys of healing and transformation. The highways that wound across the country became conduits of hope, leading us to those in need of our assistance. Our mission, born from a nightmarish encounter in a desolate rest stop, had grown into a movement of compassion and understanding, uniting the living and the dead in a dance of redemption. And as I reflect upon my tumultuous journey, I am reminded of the power that lies within each of us, the power to confront our fears, embrace the unknown, and bring light to even the darkest corners of existence. For in that darkness, there is the potential for healing, for connection, and for the profound realization that we are all bound together in the tapestry of life, even beyond the boundaries of mortality. Last story 2. An online film student named Jacob submitted a video that sent shivers down my spine, prompting me to make an urgent call to the dean at the ungodly hour of 1 a.m. In a state of panic, the dean advised me to involve the police immediately. As a filmmaking professor at an art college in Maryland, I found myself teaching my course online during a lockdown in late 2020. The assignments I typically gave involved students filming various settings, but with the class being remote, they had to work within the confines of their own homes. Most students showcased their gaming setups and collections of action figures, embracing the opportunity to reveal their personal spaces. However, Jacob took a different approach. For the initial assignment, which focused on capturing a setting, Jacob placed his camera on a tripod and recorded a dead oak tree in his backyard for a solid 5 minutes. At first, it seemed like an unconventional choice, but I encouraged my students to explore their creativity and respected their artistic decisions. Continuity editing usually involved tasks like filming a chase sequence or a snowball fight. Given the circumstances, students adapted and filmed themselves cooking or playing with their pets. But Jacob's submission took a disconcerting turn. He presented a video of himself tying a noose, proceeding to hang a mannequin from the very same dead oak tree. The unnerving nature of Jacob's work didn't escape me, but as a professor of filmmaking, I felt compelled to maintain a stoic demeanor. After all, horror and film have always been closely intertwined, and I didn't want to appear easily spooked. For the subsequent assignment, Jacob submitted a black and white clip featuring a man dressed as a medieval jester wearing a smiling mask dancing around a dead oak tree. The video left me with an indescribable sense of unease. While I was accustomed to receiving horror-themed submissions from my students, those usually consisted of gore and wild elements that injected a sense of fun into the proceedings. Jacob's clip, on the other hand, was simply eerie. Following the class, Jacob privately messaged me, asking if I had grown tired of seeing the same tree over and over again. Though hesitant, I responded against my instincts and said no. I believed that if he had found a muse that inspired him, he should continue exploring it for as long as he desired. At the time, it seemed like the appropriate response. It wasn't long before other professors informed me that Jacob had started incorporating the dead oak tree into all aspects of his work. In his photography class, he digitally manipulated a photo of a car crash to include the ominous presence of the tree. In his digital illustration class, he drew a haunting depiction of the tree with a multitude of people hanging from its branches. Meanwhile, a budding YouTuber named Matt approached me, requesting permission to submit a Let's Play video for one of the assignments. While I typically discourage such submissions, considering the unique circumstances of everyone being in home isolation, I agreed under the condition that he provide extensive narration. Curiosity led me to watch Matt's live stream on Twitch, where I discovered that Jacob was one of his teammates. Intrigued, I questioned Matt about his connection to Jacob. He revealed that they were neighbors, living just a few houses apart. Matt then proceeded to recount a chilling incident from their middle school days. Jacob had been home alone when a man arrived, claiming to have lived in that house before. The man requested Jacob's father to build him a treehouse, and tragically, as the construction neared completion, he fell from the tree, breaking his neck. Over 2 decades had passed since the man moved away, but he returned to Jacob's house, expressing a desire to see the oak tree once more. Jacob, cautious but unwilling to let the man inside, allowed him to wander around the backyard while he immersed himself in video games. When Jacob's parents arrived home, they discovered the man hanging from the very tree he had requested a treehouse in. In the following semester, early in 2021, Jacob was not enrolled in any of my classes. However, a cinematography professor contacted me via video call concerned about one of Jacob's submissions. The assignment had called for students to create a well-lit night scene, but Jacob had chosen to film a handheld point-of-view shot circling around the same dead oak tree. The professor admitted to reprimanding Jacob for submitting something that seemed unprofessional. After their interaction, Jacob abruptly logged off, leaving the professor questioning whether she had mishandled the situation. Word began to spread among the students about Jacob's fixation on the dead oak tree, and they approached me, sharing their observations and concerns. They reported that Jacob had even withdrawn from all of his classes, raising alarm bells among his peers and instructors alike. A few days later, around 11 p.m., I found myself watching Matt's live stream on Twitch. To my shock, Jacob burst into Matt's bedroom through the door, his body covered in cuts and bruises. Shards of glass stuck to his skin, and his shirt was drenched in blood, with fresh drops still trickling from his forehead. Matt, understandably terrified, fell out of his chair, screaming in horror at the sight before him. Impressed by Matt's quick thinking and resilience, he managed to compose himself enough to ask Jacob what had happened. In a chilling moment, Jacob stared directly into the camera and asked if I was watching. He urged me to watch the video he had submitted. With approximately 20 people in the chat, including some of my own students, I quickly tagged the dependable student, urging her to call 911. Simultaneously, I instructed Matt to administer basic first aid to Jacob. As I reached for my phone to contact the authorities, a notification popped up indicating that a large video file had been uploaded to our department's file storage. The file was attributed to Jacob's username. With trembling hands, I opened the video. It revealed Jacob placing a camera on the backseat of his car. Without turning back to face the road, he gazed into the camera, his expression hauntingly vacant. My mouth gaped open in disbelief as I watched Jacob step on the gas pedal, hurtling his vehicle directly into the lifeless branches of the dead oak tree. The shock and horror of the moment overwhelmed me. I couldn't comprehend the depths of Jacob's obsession and the darkness that seemed to consume him. The ramifications of his actions would reverberate through our small college community, leaving us grappling with the profound darkness that had seeped into our lives through the lens of his disturbed creativity. Story 3. I stood there, paralyzed with shock and fear as Mary walked towards the car. "Mary, don't." I tried to stop her, but she slowly turned around and flashed me a kind, reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Jay, I'll call you tonight, him." Without waiting for a response, she turned back to the car and got in. Why was I so worried? A reason sat behind the driver's seat of the truck, with a Cheshire grin plastered on his face. Lucas. His name sent shivers down my spine. He had a reputation for not knowing the meaning of the word no. Whispers circulated among several women, and secretly among a few men as well, about the trials and trauma they had endured at Lucas' hands. The fact that his father was the police chief only made matters worse. Nobody dared to challenge him. I went back home, unable to shake off the worry that gnawed at me. I waited anxiously, my mind consumed by thoughts of Mary's well-being. Finally, a light knocking came on my apartment door. There stood Mary, wearing her signature smile. Overwhelmed with relief, I immediately wrapped my arms around her, my eyes welling up with tears. "Are we gonna stand out in the hall all evening?" She giggled, brushing past me and heading inside. As we settled in, questions flooded my mind, pouring out of my mouth uncontrollably. "What the hell were you doing with that creep? Have you lost your mind? What could you two possibly have in common?" Laughing again, she turned around and gave me a knowing look. "You," I said, grimacing. I did not want to know the details. We spent the evening as we usually did during our surprise sleepovers. Laughter, takeout food, wine, and eventually bed. However, I was jolted awake in the wee hours of dawn, sensing Mary silently slipping out of the front door. I hesitated for a moment. We shared everything. There were no secrets between us. But did I truly know everything about her? Especially now that she was associating with such unusual company. Without another thought, I hastily put on my shoes and hoodie, slipping out after her. I caught sight of her heading towards the park. I quickened my pace, silently cursing every crunching leaf and snapping twig. She exited the park and ventured into the woods beyond. Something felt off, and I was determined to uncover the truth. I followed Mary's elusive shadow through the maze of trees and darkness until I reached a small clearing where a bonfire blazed. As I approached, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. Lucas had Mary by the neck, his grip tight and cruel. Fear gripped me, but before I could react, Mary began to giggle uncontrollably. It was as if she had lost her mind. Lucas looked bewildered, his confusion mixing with his cruelty. He tightened his grip, but her laughter only intensified. Then I noticed a change in her features. Her soft, round face became angular and sharp. Her eyes widened and slanted, resembling the vast night sky. And her teeth, they transformed into fangs. With a horrified expression, Lucas pushed Mary to the ground. I stifled a scream as I watched her land on all fours, her hands now resembling sharp talons. "Lucas," she hissed, her voice unnaturally deep and menacing. Before I could process the unfolding horror, Mary pounced on Lucas like a feral cat. Lucas, how many lives do you plan to destroy with those filthy hands? His desperate punches were futile against her supernatural strength. With her jaw wide open, Mary caught hold of one of Lucas' hands and began gnawing on it. His screams pierced the air, sending chills down my spine. Filled with anger and a mixture of fascination and terror, I stepped into the clearing. Their heads snapped towards me, Mary's lips curled into a slow, sinister smile while Lucas pleaded with his eyes. I smiled back at Mary, a twisted understanding passing between us. Without saying a word, I nodded in approval and turned on my heels, making my way back home. Something was undeniably wrong with Mary, but strangely, I found myself accepting it, embracing the darkness that now seemed to surround her, and that was just fine with me. Over the next few days, Mary's transformation became more apparent. Her once gentle and familiar features continued to morph into something otherworldly. Her eyes grew larger, darker, and her skin took on an ethereal pallor. She exuded an aura of power and danger. Our encounters became more infrequent as Mary withdrew into her new existence. When we did meet, it was in the shadows, hidden from prying eyes. She reveled in her newfound abilities, sharing stories of her encounters with Lucas and others who had wronged her. Mary had become something supernatural, a creature of the night, and I, her confidante, willingly followed her down this dark path. I found myself captivated by her stories, intoxicated by the raw power she possessed. One night, as we roamed the streets under the moon's pale light, Mary confided in me about the origins of her transformation. It began with a chance encounter in the woods, where she stumbled upon an ancient ritual site. Drawn by an inexplicable force, she had unknowingly awakened an ancient entity that bestowed upon her the gift of darkness. I listened, both fascinated and fearful of what she had become. She told me that her new form was an embodiment of vengeance, a force that sought justice for all the lives Lucas had ruined. And she was not alone. Others like her existed, driven by a shared purpose. Together, we began to hunt down those who had caused harm and suffering, those who thought they were untouchable. Mary reveled in her newfound power, delivering justice with a terrifying and ruthless efficiency. It was a chilling dance of darkness, leaving a trail of fear and retribution in our wake. As the nights passed, Mary's transformation grew more complete. She became a creature of the night, a being that straddled the line between human and monster. Her once familiar smile now bore a hint of menace, and her eyes held an otherworldly glow. But beneath the veneer of darkness, I could still see glimpses of the friend I once knew. Moments of vulnerability and doubt would flicker across her face, reminding me that she was still Mary, trapped in a twisted existence. One fateful night, as we closed in on another target, Mary hesitated. A glimmer of uncertainty clouded her eyes. In that moment, I saw the conflict raging within her. The desire for revenge clashed with the remnants of her humanity. I reached out to her, gently touching her hand. Mary, we have the power to change the world, to right the wrongs, but we must not lose ourselves in the process. Remember who you are, deep down. Her gaze met mine, searching for answers. A tear trickled down her face, smudging the darkness that had consumed her. Can I be saved, Jay? Can I ever find redemption? I held her close, offering solace and understanding. Yes, Mary, there is always hope, even in the darkest of times. We will find a way together. And so, our journey continued, fueled by a newfound purpose. Together, we navigated the treacherous path of vengeance and redemption, seeking balance in a world overshadowed by darkness. Mary, the creature of the night, and I, her unwavering companion, braved the horrors of the night, holding on to the hope that one day she would find her way back to the light.